Hello guys and gals, me Mudahar, and today is a pretty heated video. Alright, it's a video that I stand by pretty hard, and if it's something that I could be remembered by, it's probably my, it's probably the sentiments that I'm going to share in this video. Now, for those of you who haven't heard, Fortnite is getting sued. Now, again, I'm not a big fan of Fortnite or anything, I'm not here to be their PR team, but Fortnite is getting sued because apparently it is addictive. Now, for ladies and gentlemen who haven't been following, Fortnite has been likened to, stimulants, illegal stimulants. It has been likened with predatory gambling mechanics. It has been likened with predatory loot box mechanics, whatever you want to name it, okay? Now, ladies and gentlemen, a class action lawsuit is going against Epic Games, which is actually right here in my home turf of Canada. Judge Sylvain Lucier has sided, it's a Quebec thing, okay, has sided with the plaintiffs, agreeing that the claim does not appear to be frivolous or manifestly ill-founded. With the legal proceedings now go ahead as the plaintiffs have a valid product liability claim against the defendants. The court concludes that there is a serious issue to be argued, supported by sufficient and specific allegations as to the existence of risks and or even dangers arising from the use of Fortnite. The judge did not agree that Fortnite was deliberately created to be addictive. That's what the judge is, however, saying. The court finds that there is no evidence for these allegations of the deliberate creation of an addictive game. This does not exclude the possibility that the game is in fact addictive and that its designer and distributor have presumed to know it. Meanwhile, Epic Games argued that there isn't enough evidence pointing towards the existence of video game addiction. Now, this is one of those special, cases where you have to treat everything with a lot of nuance into it. You know, it's not really like, video game's good, parenting bad, or vice versa, okay? At the end of the day, this is a very complicated topic, and it's one where we have to discuss with fact by fact. So, is video game addiction a real thing? Now, while Epic Games and probably a bunch of other people would probably assume that it isn't, video game addiction is actually very true. One of the things cited, from what I've understood, is the actual WHO, gaming or disorder classification. For those of you who don't know, the World Health Organization classified gaming disorder as an actual illness. So genuinely what they've said is for gaming disorder to be diagnosed, the behavior pattern must be of sufficient severity to result in significant impairment in personal, family, social, educational, occupational, and or other areas of functioning that would normally have been evident for at least 12 months. That's true, okay? There is disorders out there. If you let something consume your life, where you're not going to your job, where you're not going to fulfill your personal obligations, where you're not doing, the basic things you need to survive and upkeep yourself, congratulations, you have let something consume your life. Now that could be anything. That could be a video game, that could be gambling, that could be, alcohol, that could be tobacco, that could be anything that could impair you from a normal functioning lifestyle. Now, of course, while gaming addiction isn't classified here, it's a gaming disorder, there are a lot of people that let gaming consume their life. There's a lot of people that cannot step away from a controller, a keyboard and mouse, and that's understandable, okay? For me, I like to play video games. It's in the name of my goddamn YouTube channel. I enjoy it, and maybe I have a little bit of a bias, and I've been seeing shit like Jack Thompson come up all the time, bringing video games under the bus for values that could have been corrected at the home. Yeah, I do look at this stuff with sort of a biased perspective, but even I will agree that when it comes to video games, yeah, I could step away from a video game and not play it for quite a long time. In fact, most of my adult life is like that. I wish I had time to set aside for video games that wasn't related to creating content or it wasn't related to YouTube endeavors, okay? That's what I wish. But life is not like that. If I want to be a functioning adult and live with a roof over my head and have food in my belly and, do basic things, I have to work. That's just how life is. So, of course, I understand that video game addiction is a thing. There's plenty of people that cannot step away from a controller or a keyboard and mouse. There's plenty of people that as soon as they're done with work, they'll come home and they'll play a video game for 8 hours straight, okay? They'll play World of Warcraft or they'll play Grand Theft Auto Online or Counter-Strike or whatever. When you let a video game consume you that hard and you can't step away, congratulations, you have entered the world of addictions. Addictions could be anything. They could be food, they could be tobacco, they could be alcohol, gambling, you name it. So of course, video game addiction, in my opinion at least, can absolutely be a real thing that manifests. And addiction is not a joke, alright? If somebody is genuinely addicted, they need to seek some form of rehabilitation or some way to cut off the amount of times that they're burning on a leisurely activity, okay? At the end of the day, these are all vices that people get into. They have fun with, they enjoy, but when they start consuming your life, we all can agree that's when the problem begins. Now, of course, when this was likened to things like cocaine or whatever, I have to imagine that no parent truly actually allows their child to partake in such an illegal activity. If you genuinely believe Fortnite is of that caliber, you should absolutely cut the product off right at its source. We'll get to that in a bit. One of the things that honestly makes me cringe a little bit is the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, so the ESRB, which for North America, it's the ratings board for a lot of our video games. In Europe and Australia, you probably have something known as PEGI, and in Japan, you have something known as SERO. So when it comes to the ESRB, I honestly find this to be a highly corrupt, disgusting organization on a personal level, because I don't really think they stand by what they actually preach. So for instance, a game that I love, Yakuza Kiwami, all right? A game made by Sega, one of my most favorite games from one of my most favorite franchise ever. Now, if you look into their actual platforms listing, you'll find out that they mention the game has blood, which it does, intense violence, which it does, partial nudity, which it does, sexual themes, which it does, strong language, yes it does, use of alcohol, of course. But when you look into the ESRB's classification systems, their content descriptors, they have something known as gambling written right here. So they actually have real gambling, so you actually can gamble and bet or wage real money or currency. And then simulated gambling, which is the exact same thing, but you're playing with in-game points. Now, Yakuza, for anybody that's played the game, knows that they all have casinos built into them. Pretty out there. That's present in the game itself. Why does the ESRB not mention it in the actual game to begin with? Even when you go to something like Grand Theft Auto 5, right? For instance, they don't even mention gambling here, despite the fact that the online component of this game has a casino that you can actually gamble with using real money as well, too. So again, the ESRB, anytime these ratings come out, it almost feels like even the rating boards that exist don't actually cover the game content properly. So when it comes to Fortnite, one of the questions that have been asked is, these games are designed to be addictive. So for instance, behavioral psychologists often exist for mobile gaming or gaming in general, where at least for free-to-play games, and you can look this up yourself, in fact we'll do it together right now. From a GDC talk, gambling, gaming, addiction, F2P scientific and legal perspective, you had two psychiatrists, Tyler Black and Ryan Black, basically looking at free-to-play games. And there's a great focus on conditioning and how one must self-regulate themselves before these addictions take hold. Now, especially for children who are playing these games free-to-play, they are exposed to not just a video game like Fortnite. At the end of the day, Fortnite is just a battle royale that one can jump into. The money-making prospect of Fortnite comes from its sponsorships and its selling of skins. Now, the skins, from what I understand with Fortnite, are limited time. Now, usually what will happen is Fortnite will release a skin. The skin will be on sale, or it'll be part of some unlock or battle pass, and you could obtain the skin right there. Now, after a certain amount of time, if you don't get it, you miss out your chance of getting it. So this invokes something known as FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. Now, as an adult, I can look at a video game and say, I'm not getting that skin, who cares? But for a younger child who's literally surrounded by kids who play the exact same game and who believe this to be an identifier for what's cool and what's not, look, we've all been there. Obviously, for them, they have the fear of missing out. I'm sure that they would love to jump in and spend $10, $20 to buy that skin, all right? At the end of the day, kids, a lot of them don't even have the concept of money simply known down. And of course, beyond FOMO, there's obviously loot box mechanics, battle pass mechanics, ways for you to constantly be incentivizing yourself to keep playing the game. There's a lot of psychological tricks that video games will use, especially free-to-play stuff, to keep you consistently engaged to the game. And the reason they do that is, A, you can be playing longer, so that means you're not really playing any of their competitive, their competition. Like, if Call of Duty wants you to play, they'll give you enough content and they'll find a way for you to be addicted to Call of Duty Warzone specifically. Because they don't want you playing games like Fortnite. They don't want you playing Apex. They don't want you playing their competition. The longer you play their game, the less you play of their competition. And obviously, the more you play their game, the more you may be incentivized to buy a skin or join the battle pass or join any of the microtransactions the game offers. Now, as an adult, I know the concept of money. I'm not going to throw it away on a game willy-nilly. The only microtransactions for a game that I would ever buy are games like Rainbow Six Siege, games that I've poured thousands of hours into. I also have a job and disposable income that I can afford comfortably for certain microtransactions that I buy 3 or 4 times out of the year. For a child, they really don't have access or knowledge on how to properly manage money yet, okay? When I was a kid, my dad used to give us a tiny bit of allowance, all right, like a few bucks. And the point of it was not the size of the money, was that initially when we got it, we thought, hey, we could just buy whatever we wanted. But let's say you wanted something like an Xbox or a gaming console or even a video game or something else entirely. You would have to learn to save that allowance up, or you could find jobs. And luckily, I live in the East Coast. There's a lot of snow that falls 3 months out of the year, so there's a lot of snow shoveling one can do, and you can make money. You can make extra cash and buy whatever you want. From that point, I understood the value of money right there and then. Of course, those are lessons you as a parent are going to have to provide. Now, when I come back to this whole situation, I really do want to die on the hill that says this is really a lot about bad parenting. Look, there's a reason why I'm not a father, okay? It's not because of a choice really or anything. It's because I'm really working right now. Actually, it is a choice. I choose not to have children. And the reason for that is I can't give a child enough time in the day that they deserve to at all, simply because I'm working most of the time too. That's why having kids is a conscientious choice, okay? You choose to shack up with somebody and produce a child. So when you produce a kid, it's literally up to you to dedicate as much time as you reasonably can to raising that kid. You don't get to choose outs. My aunt has 2 children of her own, okay? Both parents in that family work. And if you think she's not there trying to make sure her kids are raised right, you're insane. She's always doing the most that she can. When it comes to kids and video games, at the end of the day, these video games don't spawn out of nowhere. You're buying the cell phones, the tablets, the gaming consoles most of the time so these kids can actually play it under your roof. You're providing the internet. They are playing it under your roof. You do realize most gaming consoles come with feature sets built in to restrict the amount of play one can partake in when it comes to these gaming systems. They've been doing this shit since TVs when I was a kid. Tube TVs, when they used to have V-chips and parental control blockers. Same with set-top boxes, anything you name it. In fact, I would argue it's actually a lot easier now given the fact that you can monitor exactly what your child accounts are doing on your network through a lot of these various services. You do understand kids don't just have money to spend at these stores. They probably have a credit card or a debit card attached. There's a reason why the joke of mommy's credit card, blah, 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 for a video game. It's because a parent's credit card is attached. I, for instance, know I have my credit card attached to my Xbox Series X. If you think my aunt's kids don't have access to my credit card when they're coming over to play Fortnite or some bullshit video game, you'd be out of your mind. But even then, there's settings on these systems to prevent charges to your cards. I have passwords set up, so even if they tried to buy a Battle Pass or V-Bucks, just wouldn't be happening. There's a lot of things you can step in between. Now, of course, I've seen a lot of people push in takes like, hey, Mudo, what about like if they go to their friend's house? They're not going to be at their friend's house every goddamn hour of the day. At some point, they come home. And even if they come home, the point is not to actually like take away things from your kid. You got to sit down and talk to them about, hey, how many hours are you putting into this video game? And do you really want to spend $20 on a virtual skin or be part of this virtual slot machine gambling and in the long run? You know, if you sit down and have a discussion with your kids and explain this, I guarantee you they'll learn a lot better. And of course, even if they don't, you can always disable these games from running on your systems to begin with. You can prevent these games from being played. You can say, hey, you can play any other game except that really addictive game called Fortnite. It doesn't matter if their kids play it. They live under your roof. You have some level of direction you can offer. You can't just be a hands-off parent. At the end of the day, if you care about these kids, if you care about the kids that you're raising, you have to put in your effort to make sure that they're not breaking or they're not stepping into shit that they shouldn't be. Now, of course, I talked about this very briefly. I said, hey, parent your kids better. And I want to respond to certain messages as well, too. For instance, me, when your kid has a cocaine addiction, you should simply have intervened. I don't have any kids myself. Yeah, you should actually intervene if people are developing drug addictions in your family. You shouldn't just let it fester. I don't know what kind of a family situation you must have, but if my brother started to actually abuse narcotics, you think I wouldn't be involved in that? You're out of your mind. I love people saying stuff like just parent better with no actual examples. Here's the actual example. Learn to take those games away and actually sit down and talk to them. There's a good example, and I guarantee you it'll do a whole heck of a lot better than sitting there with your thumb up your ass. Lol, what? Parenting kids better won't undo poor design choices in epic games, which are also designed to be addictive using dark patterns and psychological tricks like FOMO. I think the argument can be made that there should be some legislation that prevents loot boxes and a lot of these games from showing up to children. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think we have the ESRB ratings board in check. I think we have a lot of ratings boards that should be overextending themselves to cover this as actual gambling. I think that these mechanics, while they're cool for actual adults, I'm sure actual adults can partake in it, I'm sure there can be limitations from the publisher like Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, Steam, Epic Games to prevent this from an audience under 18. Maybe there should be some ID verification, or there should be a credit card verification, or there should be some level of adult verification so kids aren't getting access to addictive mobile game rooted behavior. I absolutely agree. Does this guy ever have a good take? I'm absolutely right in this situation. As I said before, while a bit of it can be attributed to negligent parents, a lot of it can be, there is 100% an issue of modern video gaming exploiting psychology to keep people engaged as much as possible. This is not a problem that just started 2 weeks ago, my friend. This is a problem that's been happening since the Xbox 360 days, since even earlier than that, okay? Honestly, to address this, you should be involving your parents a lot more. You as parents should have discussions like this with kids who are playing games for far longer than they should be. I like this one. Just threaten your kids. Apparently they're likening the fact to taking away an Xbox or a PlayStation to just threatening the kids. Taking away a gaming console, which is a privilege, by the way, is not threatening your children, okay? If they're abusing what you gave them, it's your right, it's your household to take that away and again have a discussion. That's not abusive. That's not threatening. You're just a soft pussy when it comes to these kind of things. As a kid, if I did this kind of stuff, my parents would take away my console. Do you think that I hated my parents for it? Probably if I was a kid at the time, but as an adult I realized it was always in the best of intentions. And they had a discussion with me, which made me understand at a young age not to burn my time on this completely. Anyways, I'm kind of all over the place, ladies and gentlemen. This is a wild topic, but I wanted to talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mudahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.